Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the latest in a series of revelations about Liz Truss's brief period as Prime Minister, in which it's described how she discussed cutting NHS cancer treatments to save her sorry hide after the mini-budget blunder. So just under 2 years ago it was now, Liz Truss was made Prime Minister and set to work announcing what she genuinely seems to believe was a master plan for making trickle-down economics work. The fact that way smarter people had failed to do so, and many Conservatives these days accept that it fundamentally doesn't work, didn't seem to dissuade her at all. Although I guess anyone who finds themselves running a government probably doesn't see themselves as being intellectually limited anyway. Being in charge of a government's probably a hell of an ego boost, and so quite dangerous in the hands of someone whose ego has no anchor to reality. But anyway, they had this plan to severely cut taxes for the wealthy, and that this would unlock this magic concept of economic growth. Only there's a little bit of a problem. The Office for Budgetary Responsibility, which was actually set up by the Tories to provide analysis of government budgets, wouldn't really go along with the magical thinking. They would point out that the tax cuts are unfunded. How are you going to pay for these tax cuts? Oh, we'll get some growth from it. Yeah, you can't just cut taxes and through the power of magical thinking claim to be presenting a costed budget. There are assumptions in budgets, absolutely, but they have to be based on what is known to have happened when you've done something similar in the past. So Truss and Kwarteng decided that they were just going to present their budget statement without that analysis from the OBR. The result was that the pound started to crash the second Kwasi Kwarteng sat back down after giving his speech to MPs. Liz Truss's cronies these days try to blame the resultant market reaction on the Bank of England, but it began basically as soon as Kwasi Kwarteng opened his mouth, before the Bank of England did anything, before they even knew anything was happening. Also, as the bank were not actually told about the contents of the budget in advance, they had absolutely no advance warning of what was about to happen. The budget statement was completely shrouded in secrecy, and so the effects are entirely down to Truss and Kwarteng, who determined that no actual experts should be involved in the process. But anyway, the crash happened. We narrowly avoided a run on the pound as the Bank of England took emergency action. Pension funds suffered a terrible hit, and the affected pension pots are now way smaller because although people say, oh yeah, the pound crashed, but it went back up, Yeah, the pension pots didn't, did they? I wish Labour would stop going on about Truss crashing the economy, which isn't technically true. They should have talked about how she shrank pension pots. Like at the moment, Conservatives are trying to say that Labour are brutalising pensioners. You know, they're making winter fuel payments means tested. Oh, they've got it in for pensioners. Labour should be able to turn around and go, do you remember what you did? You know, the economy can recover. Those pension funds didn't and never will. So anyway, crash happened. The emergency action was taken. Truss and Kwarteng were faced with the money markets having no confidence that the UK government was taking its financial obligations seriously. They had to balance the books in a credible way. Much as Rachel Reeves is having to do now, because the Chancellor in between, Jeremy Hunt, just covered a load of things up, as we now know. This is why the OBR are investigating now that Labour have made those deceptions public. But note the difference. All the gnashing of teeth in the Tory press is of tax rises coming. We're expecting various tax rises for the wealthy. Indeed, Starmer hinted at them earlier this week, as I discussed yesterday. But the day before now. But anyway, Truss was never going to do that, was she? No. I mean, the mini-budget was embarrassing enough for her. But imagine crashing the pound. Remember what did it? It was unfunded tax cuts. Who were those tax cuts for? Was it ordinary people? Was she cutting VAT? No. It's unfunded tax cuts for the rich. So she crashed the pound, destroyed people's pension pots, which meant for some people they had to delay retirement just so that she could lower income tax for the very wealthy. She was never, as a result of that, going to say, right, well, we're going to have to balance the books by now raising taxes on the wealthy to correct the damage. Even her supporters would have laughed her out of town if she'd have done that. So she had to think in terms of spending cuts. But after over a decade of Tory austerity, there wasn't really a lot to cut. And with the cost of living crisis really ramping up at the time, the usual Tory trick of loading up tax rises on low to middle income households was out of the question. So, according to a new book on her time in Downing Street, she was contemplating moves such as cutting NHS cancer services. Can you imagine what would have happened if the Conservatives had allowed her to remain in power? You know, this is the sort of thing that baffles me about Truss's continued patronage, right? I genuinely don't get why the Tufton Street thugs are still trying to promote her as someone useful to their cause. She's useless in talks, debates and interviews. She has no political power anymore, and she's unlikely to win political power in the future because she's now so deeply unpopular. Regardless of exactly what economic damage she did to the country, the public knows she caused absolute carnage. She was initially a little repentant, but has now gone completely the other way. She now just blames everyone else. So she's making no attempt to show contrition these days. And now we learn that in order to cover up her mess, and remember, this was purely to save face. That was all it was for. It was just so that she could save face. She was willing to entertain the idea of cutting NHS cancer treatments, to let people die earlier than they should, so she could save face. Her public reputation's probably already in the gutter, but things like this mean that that's exactly where they should remain. And they probably will. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe for further content and click the like button. You can also sign up for memberships if you'd like to support the channel further. Thanks for watching. Until next time, I'll see you later.